This is the Team Objection Podcast for November 2nd, 2021, episode 504. It's election night! I'm just kidding. Nobody gives a damn about an election in a non-midterm, non-main election year.
It's weird because I thought about this yesterday. I'm like, it's an election day. And I didn't get a ballot in the mail. I honestly don't know who's running for anything. And I probably should do a better job of it. But then again, like, huh? Like, I don't even, like, is it all local? I don't even know. I'm bad.
Yeah,
I'm a bad American.
It's tough. I mean, look, I'm not going to tell you not to care about all the elections. You should if you really are devoted to the place where you live and you care about the things that are going on. And, I run a newspaper, so I should be telling people to stay up on current events. However, it's been a rough couple of years. It was a really tough political cycle last year for the election. So at the very least, I understand. Okay, I get it. If you're like, I'll tune back in as we gear up for 2022. I understand.
Yeah, I can understand that. Although I have railed on the fact that we probably need to pay attention more locally to your local elections because that affects you in a very important way. But again, you're right. It was a very difficult election cycle last year where people were just plain jerks.
Yep. And there's not a lot happening in Arizona, at least. I mean, there's not true everywhere. There's some interesting governor races. There's a few different important congressional races, but overall, for the most part, it's pretty quiet. In Arizona, I think the only really major thing of sorts is Tucson looking to adopt a similar minimum wage proposal that Flagstaff did back in 2016, where it eventually makes its way up past $15 an hour. But we'll see how that goes. I expect it'll pass. Other than that, there's really not much happening here. So anyways, we're not talking about the election. In fact, you've probably noticed that we're not talking about much of anything. If you are on the YouTube, you can see that there's really not a whole lot happening in the planner because there's also no Sean. As you can see, his chair is empty. I didn't even bother to try and replace it. I should probably make a two-person version of this, but then it just has this extra width that we don't need. I guess I can gesture more, but
I guess, or there's just more blue wigglies in the middle. I don't know how much people can see that, but there's a lot of blue wigglies back there. It's like the blue matrix.
yeah, it's just to give it a little bit of dynamicism in the background. So it's dynamicism. That's the word. Dynamicism in the background, and it's pretty dark blue compared to a black, so it's hard to notice, but it's there.
I'm also a little disappointed. We have one. Thank you, Doug, for joining the chat this evening. This is actually a pretty good one for chat people to join our plan for the evening because everyone can play along on our evening tonight. So
that's true.
Doug, this is it.
We can use your answers as material.
Yes, we can. You're the second star of the show because I'm the third star. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, no Sean means no his wife, and no his sister probably. So it's just the audience is what it is.
It's really depressing that who turns in for who apparently on this show.
It's never been for me, and I understood that.
It's never been for me either. That's for sure.
Well, what we're going to do is basically a different version of the old tried and true the Tumblr quiz. And Dave found a list that has 70 questions on it. So while we can't do percentile dice for that, we can still have a random number generator. You can just do that on Google. You just type in a random number in the range, and it'll give you a thing that gives you a button to click, and you can adjust it as necessary. So we're going to run through those, answer some random questions, do a little bit of a shorter show this week because it's been a logistical nightmare.
And a hell of a week at work.
Yeah, it's only Tuesday.
And I took yesterday off for my wife's birthday, so it's been that bad of a day.
They did the joke on 30 Rock about Liz Lemon complaining about how long the week had been, and Alec Baldwin's character's like, Liz, it's Wednesday. We haven't even made it to Wednesday yet.
Nope,
it's only Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But let's dive into it, shall we?
Yep.
No more ado. Let's see. So when I opened the range, it gave me a number. I want to see if I care about that one or if I want to roll it. Fine, we'll go with it. I want to save my veto for something more important than this. So I rolled a 29.
Veto multiple, don't worry.
And the question for 29 is, where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Which I find this question funny because of the fact of 10 years ago is essentially when we started this podcast-ish. We're actually, after the show last week, doing a deep dive down memory lane of finding the first episode of the old radio show that Chris, Sean, and I were all on together, which we eventually found from 2009.
April 2009.
Yeah, a little crazy. That's pushing 13 years now. But let's see. Where do I see myself 10 years from now? 10 years from now, Caitlin is going to be close to graduating high school. All kids will be in school. So this crazy thing is I don't really see myself anywhere different than where I am right now, which is a weird thing to say because I don't plan on moving from my house. I pretty sure I'm sticking with this company I'm with now, unless something crazy great comes along. But other than that, I like my job. It's pretty stable. I make good income, so I don't know what I'm going to change except for maybe what I drive and what I do during the day.
Yeah, not going to change your wardrobe.
Hell no. I've had this shirt since we started this show.
Haircut, beard combo probably pretty well locked in at this point.
Maybe a little less hair over here. I don't know. A little more grays. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going back to that was interesting because if you thought we sounded bad on episode 1, and we did, this is a whole other level. Now, the audio itself sounds better overall because we were in an actual studio on the NAU campus. So that kind of holds up okay. But the quality of the conversation, particularly for Dave and Sean, is not very good. In snippets, they have moments. I'm not saying they're bad, but Sean in particular is not comfortable at all, and it shows. And so for maybe I'll post it at some point on the website, just that we're not teasing something you can't actually hear yourself. Just know that I went back and found it and then kind of listened to at least the start and the end of the episode, and I was like, oh boy, even just before episode 1, we had leaps and bounds to cover.
I went back and listened to a lot of that as well. So you're going to have to post it now, Chris, because we're talking about it. But I actually listened to the vast majority of the show and then I actually had my wife listen to a little bit, and she said, oh, that's interesting. Sean doesn't sound like he's screaming over the top of anybody. I can actually listen to him now. So I'm like, oh. And I say that because Sean's not going to listen to the show.
That's correct. And it should be noted that in addition to him being sort of reserved as far as like his energy level, just his voice in general, as you mentioned, is just kind of like almost meek.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really recognize it if you didn't realize that he was already sort of playing up his like exaggerated personality for the benefit of the show. I mean, he started back in episode 1 of this show proper, not this old radio show, doing like a character of sorts. And then I think that character just sort of bled into himself, and now that's what it is.
He became the character was what happened.
Essentially. So I'm sidestepping the question because I have a hard time with this one right now. Do I want to get myself in trouble? Not really, but I'm also not going to sidestep the answer totally. Do I see myself at my current job in 10 years? No. That's a long time from now, and God knows what our industry is going to look like or what challenges that might present to us. So if you had to put a gun to my head, I would say I probably will either have changed roles or moved up or moved out. And if that gets me in trouble, I suppose so be it. But I had that same question when I got the job in the first place. It was part of the interview, and I was like, I don't know. 10 years is a long time.
I think it would be irresponsible for an employer to have you commit or promise that you're going to be in the same role even 10 years from now. I don't know many people that stay in the exact same role for 10 years unless it's a very prominent one.
Yeah. And to your point, I mean, we started the show in February of 2011, so it has been over 10 years now. We talked about that back in February when we had that episode. And when I think back on just how different my circumstances are now to when I started the show, it's like, man, there are some things that have been consistent, certain side interests and certain friendships and family relationships and whatever. Like, there are certainly some bedrocks there. But there are also several things where I'm like, man, I would not go back to where I was then for any amount of money. So I don't know exactly. It's tough, but that's, job-wise, I'm not sure. Will I be in Flagstaff? I don't know. I wouldn't have thought I'd be here 18 years in the first place, so, who knows?
Doug, you want to travel more, but don't see yourself change jobs. I get that. I want to travel more, too. So,
I mean, if you have a good place of employment and you're happy with it, that's awesome. I am not unhappy with mine necessarily, but there are certainly aspects of this industry that are tough. There's no sugarcoating that. So, I don't know. It's hard to say. If you have something you like, whether it's a job, a significant other, whatever, and you're going to hang on to them, I'd incorporate that into your 10-year plan. But otherwise, I'd try and stay as, how do you say this, not concrete as possible. Don't ruin another opportunity just because you have some other vision set for yourself, basically.
Yep.
Okay. Rolling the die. It's tough because I have to tab over.
I'm going to be 46 in 10 years.
Yeah, me too.
I'm almost 47.
I don't want to talk about that. Hopefully I'm on the disc golf tour by then, but in the 40-plus division.
There you go. 10 years from now, there's your plan.
Alrighty. I have tabbed over and I have randomly hit 57.
See if that's any good.
It's going to be one that you don't like because it's a Sean-style question.
Oh, jeez.
If you could save someone you deeply cared about, but it meant breaking a law, would you do it?
Okay, I have 3 children. Yeah, have to.
Yeah, I don't actually think this is all that difficult. I mean, we're also talking about anytime you do these hypotheticals, you break it down to some kind of really granular level, right? So, yeah, what law? Breaking and entering? Robbery? How do I have to save them? Do I have to commit medical fraud for some reason? What are we talking about here?
Are we talking about I'm even go to the extreme of murder? Are you telling me that I have to break the law by committing murder because someone's threatening my child's life? Yeah,
stand your ground.
I mean, I don't even think that's a question for anyone, really. I appreciate, Doug, your answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think somebody thought they were stoned and they were like, dude, this is a deep question. And then when they sobered up, they were like, wait a minute, actually, no, because laws are societal measures put in place that are necessary, right? Overall, there are certainly issues with them, but we have these so that we have these set standards for society. But rules are meant to be broken, and if it's a spot that's that important, I don't even think most people would hesitate.
True. Because this was a question that was too easy to answer. I'm going to, Mike, Vito, just go to number 58 really quickly, the next one down, because I have a funny answer for this.
Okay, so if I hit 58 later, you're off the show. So that's the risk you take. We've already hit 2 numbers. There's 70. The chances can't be that high. We're only going to get to 10.
It's okay. It's 1 out of 7 chance, kind of. I mean, if we're getting 10.
And you're going to run that 1 out of 7 chance 7 times, although it gets a little bit more likely every time.
Oh, boy.
Probability. So it's up to you. We can do that, but if it comes up, you're going to be punished.
Okay, well, the question is, what's the dumbest thing you've done for money? So I think actually, if I know Chris's answer, if he doesn't remember it, because I think money was involved, but my answer was at one of our friends' birthday parties. I want to say it was his 16th, was at his aunt's house with a very nice pool. And they said, let's have a belly flop contest. And I won that damn thing. And I got $20. And my stomach was very red.
Yeah, that's, at the time, that's a decent amount of money, so it's hard to be like, that was really stupid, but it's pretty stupid.
It's really stupid. It hurt a lot. I was full on, off the diving board and as flat on the water as you can. Doesn't feel good.
So if you had to replicate that today between your seasoned age and knowing what the experience was like the first time, what would that dollar amount have to be? 4 or 5 figures?
It wouldn't have. It'd be. I mean, in the 4s, I'd probably you know what? I'll recover. In the 4 figures, that'd be nice. It's not life-changing money. I'm not gonna commit a crime for it, but I mean, it'd be nice to have an extra $1,000.
If you could save money you deeply cared about, but it meant breaking the law, would you do it? Dumbest thing I've ever done for money. I mean, I've eaten food off the ground for money.
That's it, right there.
Multiple times. In parking lots, in fields.
The worst one was the piece of lettuce that had the asphalt in it.
Yeah, and I doubled down on that in what I think was the last thing I ever did, at least as far as outside. Something falls on the floor in the kitchen and I grab it quick enough, whatever. That's not the same, right? 5-second rule, whatever. The last time I did it was one of those Little Debbie oatmeal cream sandwiches. You know, the ones that are super soft and then the individually wrapped packages.
They're very good.
And I picked that up in a parking lot and ate it. So the lettuce was already supposed to be kind of crisp, not crunchy, but it was sort of along the same lines. This is supposed to be soft and gooey and became crunchy. And I was like, I don't know what I've done with my life. I'm only 20 and already I feel like I've made a terrible choice.
Yep. I'm glad I knew your answer already, but...
Yeah. Yeah, and Doug's, of course, we've made fun of him for off and on for a long time, but he won $10,000, which automatically makes this not as stupid as it could be. It's dumb in the sense of it shouldn't have been worth this prize for this level of effort, but it was very smart of him to do it. He got a video game quiz and somehow managed to win it just by looking up the answers and won $10,000. Was that through GameFAQs, Doug? He'll get back to us momentarily. The latency's low. I think it was through GameFAQs or something similar, one of those websites that was just hey, this is the late 2000s. Everybody can have money. And so they just gave him money.
We were in a recession. My God.
It was around then. Maybe the latency is not as low as I thought it was. Anyways, he'll get there. Yeah, I think so. So there you go. All right. Well, we took 58. Now everything's going to be really dangerous. And if I pull it up on the screen, I'll move the camera and show it. I'm not going to bullshit you. We did get something ending in an 8, but it's 48. And the question is, how often do you get mad or upset at yourself?
Go first.
Not that often, but it happens. Hell, we just had an example last night. So that's convenient. Last night, we were almost to press with the very first word of a story wrong. It did not come up in spell check, and well, I'm not going to get into our details of our inner operations. Let's just say there are 3 different reporters turning over right now. I only have 4. So it's been not a great couple of weeks. And so I can make excuses for it. The fact remains I missed it. We had a story about the draft maps for the Independent Redistricting Commission and how it was going to affect Northern Arizona and different both legislative and congressional districts, right? Because that affects voting and which leans which way, etc. And the first word of the story, instead of draft maps, were daft maps, which some would argue they are. However, it's a really bad look to misspell a word in the lead. It's an especially bad look to have it be the first fucking word of the story. Luckily, we caught it, and I got them to replate it and replace that page, so it did not go to press. It did not go out online ever that way. However, I was still pretty mad because it's like that level of mistake should not happen. I'm better than that. So those type of things, I feel like it's only really when I feel like I've been stupid, which is dumb because everybody makes little mistakes, but it's when I feel like I should have been smarter than I was in a spot. That's about the only time it happens.
And I mean, I get that, but those types of things are so small and so tough. And also if you're overworked, that's the type of thing that gets missed. The one letter where spell check can't catch it because it's one letter off. At least you didn't miss the L in public hair salon.
Oh, there's that one, yes, which obviously has happened. There are different newspaper clippings of it, but I've always told people the one we can't ever miss, the Ellen, is not public. It's Flagstaff.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Can't happen.
Nope.
Can't happen. And it almost did once in an ad. And I was like, no.
Do I get upset at myself? Yeah, probably on a daily basis because I question everything I do with kids. Like, was I too mean to them? Was I not mean enough? Am I raising them? Am I ruining them? There's a lot of things I can get I question myself, I guess, more so than get mad at myself. But it is a mind fuck. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to think I could be more forgiving to myself, and I think overall I am. But there are definitely spots, and I can always tell it's happening because I'm not really a huge excuses guy, I don't think. I mean, if my impression of myself is wrong, then so be it. But when I start to try and come up with some, that's when I usually have to go like, no, this is probably something you did.
And like you said, the worst thing is when you were stupid. Like, you knew better and you still screwed up. Feels like something you know you should fix, when you're a kid, not now, when you're a full-grown adult.
And maybe at the risk of patting myself on the back, I guess it means at the very least that, like, there's a level of caring or professionalism or dedication to a craft that some people might not even possess in the first place, where they might be like, ha, that's a dumb mistake, and then they just move on. I'm not really the move on type, but either way, it's something I could be a little bit more forgiving to myself about. Alrighty, is this 58? It went up. So I can actually see it. Like it starts at whatever number it is, and then it starts going. So it's like an odometer going really fast or something. Like it goes up or down. It went up, but it went past 58. Stopped at 67, which is... What's the nicest thing you've ever done for someone you don't know?
I mean, I don't know. I do general nice things, like I'll hold doors or let someone pass on the freeway if it's appropriate. I don't tend to do big gestures for a lot of people, so I don't, especially if I don't know them, I don't know that I'm going to actually really go all out on my way on that.
This is tough because I don't often do things for people I don't know, which is sort of sad to say, but I've donated to charities, I've supported certain drives, but a lot of times those are more connected to people I do know. It's, somebody I know who's doing a fundraiser on Facebook, and I see it and I go, okay, yeah, like let's donate to that or something. Like I'm pretty targeted with different charitable donations and the like. Occasionally I've done the pay it forward thing, like the drive-through of a fast food place or whatever kind of restaurant like type place, and just been like, hey, put that person's tab on mine or something if it seems like they're in a weird mood, or I can see like kids fighting in the back seat or something. That's happened a few times. I don't know if I have a really good answer for this one, which is sort of sad in and of itself.
It kind of makes you reevaluate your life, but that is you're playing with fire, I gotta say, if you do the pay it forward thing, because it's like, yay, yeah, go ahead and pick up the car behind me. Oh, it's a van full of 10 kids. Oh, it's $125 at McDonald's. Shoot.
And a lot of times it depends on who the cashier is, because if they tell them up front, some people will be like, oh, well then, I'll have 6 number 5s. And you're like, well, it wasn't really the spirit of what I intended. It was whatever you're going to order. I don't need you to go run up a tab on me. Doug mentions the groceries one. I have done that once before too, because it seemed like there was like maybe she was a single mother, maybe not. I have no idea. But she was like trying to juggle 3 kids and just seemed like she was having a miserable time. That happened, God, 15 years ago. So, I mean, there's been little bits like that. I don't know if there's any like huge sweeping gestures, but the huge sweeping gestures are more for people I actually know and care about. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll try to do nice things for people maybe I've just met, because I want to make a good impression, which probably isn't the best. I should probably care more, try to do more bigger gestures for people who I know longer, but I don't know, like I always like to make a good impression. I tend to believe the best in people, which is probably a flaw of mine, but I don't know. I want to make a good impression. I feel like they would do the same for me, so I'll do the same for them.
Yeah, makes sense. Number almost has to go down. Oh God, it went down fast.
Good. So it went down a lot, not 58.
It went down a ton, all the way to number 2.
You
just walked into a bookstore. I mean, let's pretend like this hypothetical situation still happens somewhere in the world. Which section do you go to first?
What's a book? I don't read enough is the problem with me.
I also do not read enough anymore. I have plenty of books around the house, and I think it's just because my job is so devoted to reading. So, like, that's already a tough sell. And then I still do leisure reading. I'm reading stuff on ESPN or about the Suns or about, like, IGN or whatever, right? But as far as, like, fiction, nonfiction, leisure reading, it's just not happening. So my answer is a cheat. If I'm walking into a bookstore, I usually go to the board game section.
Solid. That's a solid area to go. Doug wins everything with Calvin and Hobbes, because I have read every Calvin and Hobbes book there is, and I think I still have the vast majority of them from my childhood, because Calvin and Hobbes rules everything. But if I had to pick the section I'm going to, I would go with fiction, probably. Actually, take that back. My first choice would be nonfiction. I love those books where they follow around like a team or a group. Like if I could read something about how a movie that I liked, like where someone chronicled the making of a movie, or like Jack McCollum's book, the 7 Seconds or Less book about the Suns in 2005-06. I love those types of books, because when I already like a topic and then I can find out more about the personalities in it, that's really fun. But I would also pick, my second choice would be fiction, just science fiction. I love science fiction books. Screw Lord of the Rings, Sean.
And if we really want to cheat, if I go to Bookman's, there's a video game section. There's also like a music section.
Yep, there's records, there's music, there's VHS even.
Probably not the spirit of the question, but that's where I go. I mean, the pieces of art behind me, all the Zelda ones back there, are from Bookman's. I had store credit and saw a bunch of these in a set, and I thought that'd be a fun decoration for the studio, so I got those there. The nice electronic keyboard downstairs was like $500 there, but that was also all store credit from when I just offloaded a ton of stuff when we moved. So if it's a fancy bookstore with other alternatives, I might spend a good hour walking around there, but a random bookstore probably can't fulfill it for quite as long.
Yeah.
Nick is also in the chat. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Nick. No.
I'm not clicking these multiple times. I'm not jerry-rigging this anyway. Let's see. How am I going to punish Dave for this? I think I'm going to go with my choice now. And I'm going to pick.
I have to answer it.
I'm going to pick one that I know you're not going to like as much, which means I just now sit here and scroll, which does not make for compelling radio. See, I'd like to pick up one. There are some to me that jump out, like, is world peace possible, that I think are just stupid on the surface. I don't know if I have one that I don't think is all that interesting. Damn. What I should do is just turn your camera off, but turning your camera off, as we've found in the past, also turns off your microphone, so that's not a punishment. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess I don't have a punishment. I guess I'm just going to re-roll. That's kind of boring, but let this be a lesson.
That was my playing the odds there.
All right, good. This basically will serve as an answer to the last one then. 37 was what came up next, and the question is, what offends you the most? And for me, it is Dave trying to break the system and then getting fucked over for it literally 7 minutes later.
Yeah, I deserve that. It's fair. What offends me the most?
What offends you the most?
I probably am most offended by sweeping judgments that are made without even considering nuance. And that is all we have on our social media world that we live in today. It is, here's an example. On Twitter earlier, there's a video shown. It's like a Ring, the Ring doorbell type of house video coming from the front of somebody's house. The video shows there's a bowl of candy out on Halloween, and this little kid who's 4 or 5 maximum driving up on a Hot Wheels. Kid looks like a total badass driving up to this, hops out of the car, picks up 2 pieces of candy, puts it in the back of his little Hot Wheels, and backs out, does a 3-point turn, and drives away. Kid looks like a total badass. The first comment, the first tweet on there was, man, what terrible parents. I can't believe they let their 5-year-old out at night like that. It's like, you can see the parents in the background. Regardless, that's not the point of this video. You are jumping to conclusions and calling these people bad parents for something you know nothing about. It's ludicrous, and it happens rampantly online.
That kid power slid to a stop.
It was badass.
So if you haven't seen that video, I'm sure it will not be hard to find on social media. It had, 200,000 likes or something. That was a neat video, and I think that's a good example of the overarching point. I think for me it's a little bit different, but not altogether so. And it's the idea of people who are not empathetic, which is really difficult for somebody who I think is too empathetic in myself, where at times I'm like, I wish I wouldn't care so much about what's happening with other people. In these cases, it's like, I used to think it was more of an intelligence thing, and I don't think that's true. I think there are people who are plenty smart and savvy who can still be relentlessly cruel if they choose to be, and it's because they don't have any experience trying to put themselves in other people's shoes. They don't have any experience trying to see how other people might feel in a situation and apply it to themselves. So that's hard for me, and guess what? You see a lot of that on social media too.
Not having empathy, or I guess it comes back to mine a little bit, but not having empathy by trying to consider someone's situation. How often do if you feel like people judge others, hey, my hair is not done when I leave the house, or my clothes are from, there's something, so much is judged on looks when you're just out and walking around, when it's like, okay, you don't know their situation, so back off a little bit on the judgment.
Yeah, that's one I struggle with, and we've seen that come to light even more so the last few years, whether that was enabled by our former president, encouraged, stoked. You can argue about that. Some people don't even care about that in the first place. The fact that he says what he says is, in its own nature, inherently unempathetic to other people. So
it empowered, it rightly or wrongly, or his intently or not, empowered people to act certain ways that they may not have otherwise.
Yeah. So that's probably the one I would go to the most. I'm not really offended by most of the things. I can be annoyed. I can be this or that. There's certainly things that are pet peeves or whatever. But that's the one, especially as I'm getting older, where I'm like, you didn't even bother to make the effort to try and get the other perspective. That's the one that really gets me. If you try and fail because you don't have enough shared experiences, at least then if you recuse yourself from the conversation, being like, yeah, I don't really know what that's like, so I'm not going to offer an opinion. That's fine. That's okay, because at least you're trying and growing. But the people that just shut it off, no thank you. Thought-ending cliches from Nick. Yeah, anytime you have a conversation that has an interesting flow to it and people just cut it off, that's the only time. Some people are just upset about the phrase "it is what it is." I don't really care about that inherently, but when it actually is the ending of a conversation, that's when it kind of hurts.
Yeah, Yeah, you go through this whole problem dilemma of like, yeah, I've got this thing, it's bothering me, I don't know the solution. Yeah, well, it is what it is. It's like, well, that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and also like, well, what if it wasn't what it is?
Yeah.
Like if we're talking about societal change, maybe the answer shouldn't be it is what it is, but rather what can we do to make it not be what it is?
Or it is what it is. Of course, it's the most blatant, useless statement you can think about. Yeah, it is what it is. Well, of course it is, because it wouldn't be otherwise. So you said nothing in this. That does bother me.
Yeah, Doug brought up people who doubt integrity in work, in honesty, in dependability. There is the famous poker player Daniel Negreanu, who is very outspoken politically, is a vegan, which for most vegans is what they lead conversations with, and he's no different. Like, he has a lot of different things that people rag on him about, and he doesn't really care about any of them, although I think he cares more than he lets on, like any of us. But the one thing you can never do with him is, like, you better not call him a cheater. You better not question his integrity, especially given that he's like in gambling, in poker. If that's like the cardinal sin, you do not bring that kind of stuff up unless you have a damn good reason. Because there are obviously cheaters and scams in that industry, which is why it's all the more important if somebody else thinks their word is bond, that they follow that to the T. So integrity is a good one too.
Yeah, I will say with Negreanu, the way he reads cards sometimes does seem like he's cheating, but he's just that damn good.
He's just that damn good sometimes. Alrighty, let me roll again here. If I switch off this work email, great. Going down. 31. I mean, what the fuck? Well, let's just get this out of the way because I won't skip it. Would you attend a same-sex wedding if invited? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Next question. What you should do while I'm spinning these through is find out when that questionnaire came from, because that's always sort of interesting to put it in a snapshot in time. Like the one we did last time, I think, was from way back in the early 2010s. And there were a few questions on there where you were like, oh, this is different now than it was back then, including some of the technology-related ones, too. So some of them were like that, where it was like, well, we've come a long way with LGBTQ since then. Some of them were like, when was the last time you called someone on a rotary telephone or something like that? You're like, well, what?
March 21st, 2018.
Oh, that's more recent than I was hoping for.
I was hoping so, too, but... Ew.
Do we know where the person is from who made the quiz?
I can't tell.
Because a 2018 question about going to a same-sex marriage wedding in Alabama is different than a 2018 question in Washington State. All right, well, let's go to the next one. Okay, generate. It scrolled down. Oh, well, it went down a lot. I have to scroll up. Okay, this is a Dave-type question because it's boring and drab. You've just woken up for the morning, says number 5. What's the first things you do? What are the first things you do?
There's the editor coming out in you.
Yeah. What is the things you does?
Here's drab and boring. I usually hit snooze at least once because I kind of enjoy that last few minutes where you're like resting and enjoying sleep. And then I usually, because I get up about 6:30, I boringly look at the stock market because it had just opened at 6:30. And then I brush my teeth and take a shower and get ready to go to work.
I, more recently, since my deadline shifted and I can go to bed at a reasonable hour, am enjoying sort of waking up and taking my time in the morning. It used to be if I was going to bed at 2, I wouldn't be up till 10 or so. And it's like, well, got to get going. I already have a million emails waiting for me. Now I wake up between 8 and 8:30 most days, and I usually read for about a half hour. That means going through Twitter quickly, because most of the time it's a waste. That means checking my emails once. Unfortunately, I'd love to get to the point where I don't feel like I have to do that. I cannot. I usually have to check it just to make sure nothing major is happening, so that I then have the peace of mind to do the other stuff more routinely. So I lay there reading. I enjoy my nice, comfortable bed, and then, usually it is get up, eat a bagel, and go right back to emails. I usually don't shower until the early afternoon. It depends on what's happening that day. If I have meetings or something, I may change that, but not really a morning or an evening shower, which is weird.
Yeah, if I shower during the day, it's only on the weekends. I have to basically, I pretty much have to shower in the morning. It's how I kind of get my day started. I feel so much more refreshed in the morning. I know plenty of people who are nighttime showers. I can't do that. I can't go to bed with wet hair. I don't feel right if I go to bed after taking a shower.
Yeah, it's weird. And then when you wake up, if you have hair of any meaningful length, it's all screwed up anyways.
Yeah.
Even if you let it dry for the most part, just sleeping on it after a shower is different. And now the next morning you're like, well, either I have to take another shower or I got to go to work looking like this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not great. Coffee and bagel, says Doug. Let his dog outside. Yes.
I like waking up, brushing your teeth with a bottle of Jack. I didn't finish my sentence when I said I brushed my teeth, but that is it.
Nick says, grown and crack every joint in my body because old. I mean, you're only a month older than Dave, so I'm not sure how old you get to be. But okay. 39. At what age did you have your first alcoholic beverage? Now, I'm assuming they want us to kind of go into more detail about that story, because otherwise it's like a number and you move on. I don't have a phenomenal one. I was probably 14 or 15 when my dad's family was like, "You want to try beer?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it was okay. And I was like, "Cool." And so set me on a path of really not doing a lot of drinking to begin with, maybe a couple times a month at most. So it's not a very exciting story. And they had asked me a year or two before that. And I think because I wasn't even in high school yet, I was like, no, I can't do that. That's crazy.
Dare taught me not to.
Yeah. But then when I was like a freshman or a sophomore in high school, one of the two, I was like, sure, I'll try that.
God, okay, so I have two stories. One, when I intentionally had alcohol for the first time, and the first one was when I unintentionally had alcohol for the first time, because the true answer to this question, what age did I have my first alcoholic beverage, was I think about 7, because at Easter with my family, I walked over to the refrigerator, with everyone in the kitchen staring at me, ripped that refrigerator open, looked to the side to talk to somebody, grabbed a can out of the fridge, pulled it, popped it open, started drinking, not realizing it was a silver bullet of a Coors Light, and proceeded to spit take all over the floor because it was absolutely disgusting and not the Pepsi I had anticipated drinking. So,
yeah, get you every time, huh?
It was still talked about to this day, every once in a while between family, because it was pretty funny from the outside.
Yep, and that's the type of story they're looking for with this question, so that's perfect.
But for real though, I think I was 16. I was probably 16 when I went to one of the first parties I ever went to in high school, and somebody had Zimas and Mike's Hard Lemonades, and I had 2 of them and thought, oh man, I'm drunk. Oh my God, what am I gonna? I'm so drunk. I wasn't at all.
Yeah, I've never been close to being drunk. I don't know what my tolerance is. I do know I had 3 or 4 shots of apple schnapps when we went to a German restaurant in Mesa that must have been for either my grandpa or my grandma's 80th. So I think it was about 10 years ago. And I was driving. Didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
No, those weren't they were, they're shots, so they're not, I'm not sure what the percentage of content was there, but either way, it was either watered down, which I don't think so, because nobody else was complaining about it, and my grandparents would have complained about it because they complained about everything in a restaurant, or at least I have decent tolerance, especially coming down from altitude. So, okay, we'll get a few more in us. Sure. Number 6 is, complete this phrase: you cannot buy happiness, but you can buy
a wave runner, which will buy you happiness. It's a Dan Toss joke. Security. That's the true answer to this question. You can't buy happiness, but you can buy security. You can have at least a house over your head and a roof over your head and food to eat. So you can buy that, and that makes it a lot easier to find happiness.
Yeah, I think mine was going to be sort of similar, but it was going to be certainty, which is along the same lines, because it means okay, well, unless I get laid off or something weird happens, okay, I know I've got this much income, I can budget accordingly, it takes care of, this portion of the bills for me and my family, whatever, so that you can then not have to worry about those things, which is one of the primary things that would take away from happiness. We kind of discussed this on the show before, maybe even in the last Tumblr questionnaire, where it was do people who have more money always have happiness? No, there's no guarantee of that. And sometimes people who are living in worse conditions are still perfectly happy because they have the things they need, like family or whatever. But, I mean, at this point, it is sort of fill in the blank. To me, that's certainty, or you can buy a safety net.
It's diminishing returns is the problem with cash. You have no cash, then a little bit of cash will make you happy. As you continue up that ramp, it starts really flattening how happy the extra cash makes you. Because, great, I bought another boat. Woohoo! I guess when you go into space on your own dime, I guess I don't know how much more you can achieve, really, right?
Yeah, essentially.
Typing
Okay.
out.
Answering a work message. Great. Next question. 63. You got offered a job to do something you love, but the pay is one of the worst out there. One of the worst. One. I don't know. Do you take it? I understand the intent of the question. I'm just being.
I understand the intent of the question, and this is a wonderful question to ask when you're about 17 years old and you're like, yeah, man, I'm going to work for what I want. I don't care about money. I'm going to figure out what I want to do. And, they say do what you love and the money will follow. No, not at least in my position in life. The pay is one of the worst out there. So let's assume slightly higher than minimum wage. Let's go for that $15 an hour that everybody wants. Yeah, I ain't living my lifestyle on $15 an hour. Sorry, bubs.
Would you do it in like 5 years when the kids are all older and in school and more self-sufficient, and
No.
Courtney could work too?
Probably not, because at that point I'm still planning for them having college costs, making sure I'm saved for retirement. Like there's so many things that I want to have. Yeah, am I going to be able to do this, when the kids are self-sufficient? Sure, I guess so. But at that point I'm probably going to be hopefully saved up enough where I don't even need to work. So
Yeah, I mean, that's
no.
one of the things you could qualify, right? Is like, give me 20 more years and maybe I put more money aside and then the kids are gone. And like, then if you want to offer me the minimal and I already have my pension locked up or whatever, then sure. Like, I would love to make $30,000 a year as I'm nearing retirement to do something I love anyways. That would be great. Right now, when I have bills to pay and whatnot, no. I mean, no.
I've thought about something I wish I would have done earlier in life is worked as a waiter in a restaurant, because it seems like a lot of times it's pretty shitty. Like, I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but there's a lot of bad things that come with it. But it's also a very intriguing job in the sense of how many people you run into, just how much life experience you get. And I'm kind of sad that I never did that younger in life. So if money were not an issue, I think I'd probably go do that as like, sure, I'll go work on the weekend I'll go be a waiter on the weekend and meet a lot of interesting people. It could be fun.
I mean, the hope is that people have enough things that they love outside of their work that they have this balance still accounted for. Like, yes, it'd be great to do the thing that you love as a living until it isn't. Because one of the things people find out sometimes is that they don't love something as much as they thought when it becomes required. So just be careful what you wish for is all. People, I want to play video games all day. Video game testers often end up not liking video games anymore because it's not just play whatever games you want willy-nilly all day. It's play this section of this game every day for 4 weeks and bug test the hell out of it until you hate everything.
Please keep running into this wall until you find a way to clip through it so we can fix it.
Yeah. Do something you love for a living for a change of pace. Like, yeah, I mean, especially if you know you could come back, like as a sabbatical or, because you're in a position where you're irreplaceable, so you could go and come back and then pick up where you left off. There's definitely ways to do it. And again, the more people can get this overlap to happen, the better. I encourage it. But could I just drop what I'm doing right now to be like, yeah, I'll make $8 an hour living in this deep south? No. Even with the reduced cost of living.
So
let's commit to 2 more.
I got to find out, though, what Nick is talking about, where he got into engineering and discovered that the girls is basically nothing like it was sold in college. So I guess those engineers really are pulling in the girls, right, Nick?
Should have been field, not girls. That is the worst autocorrect I've ever... Well, that's not true, but it's up there.
It's really up there. It's, it's funny, though, and I appreciate it, because I imagine those engineering grads are just swimming in sorority parties.
Number 19 is our next to last one, our penultimate, and it is a basic one, so maybe we'll sneak in a third. We'll see what the next one is. It is, you are carpooling with your friends. Are you more likely to be the driver or a passenger?
I feel like I was, well, in the past I was always the driver because I was the one with the license, but I still feel like, despite the fact that I really don't like driving that much, I still feel like I'm the driver most times.
And I like driving because I get car sick. So, I get car sick if I read or something. I can sit in the car and be fine. But if I try to read or concentrate on something like a Switch or whatever, it usually doesn't go very well. It's actually gotten worse as I've gotten older because I remember playing like my Game Boy on road trips when I was, 12 and not having that problem. But nowadays it's like, well, if I can't enjoy not driving, I might as well drive so other people can enjoy not driving. And then I get control of the radio, which is important to me.
That's true. If you're the driver, shut up and listen to whatever I'm putting on the radio.
Yeah, and I'll subject people to some weird stuff, but if it keeps me entertained for a long drive, then I don't give a damn.
Mm-hmm. I gotta say, though, I appreciate Nick driving on that trip about 12 years ago. Pretty much all of it, so thanks for doing that for us, Nick.
Yeah, that's appreciated. I was driving that big SUV that time. We almost crashed.
It's true.
Because there was really bad weather, and even though it wasn't a ton of snow in and of itself, it made the roads terrible, and I skidded on a downhill, so that when we got to the amusement park we were going to, I spent the first 15 minutes being like, inside. I don't know if it showed, but inside I was like, oh boy, it's not even my car. It was almost real bad. So I'd love to know if that was ever visible to anybody else. I thought I kept it together pretty well.
I didn't realize how close we got, and then we're like, hey, this place looks fun. I was kind of like a little kid, so.
Can you guys, whether that's Dave or the audience, hear the vacuum?
A little bit.
Cool. All right, we'll make this the last one then. And I don't want that to be the last one, so I'm skipping it. Oh, we're back to 57. We already did that one. Okay. Mikhail Bridges' number. A good one to end on. 25. Would you rather be the worst player on the best team or the best player on the worst team?
The Are You Sean Marion question. That's what I'm going to title this one.
I'm going to mute myself, so go ahead.
This is a tough one because I feel like I would probably, if I had to pick, be the best player on the worst team because at least then I'm contributing. But I know there are other ways to contribute if you're on a winning team. So I could go either way on this one. But I feel like if you're in professional sports, I guess you're going at here, then I would probably rather be the worst player on the best team because at least I'm getting paid. But if I'm talking about high school or amateur stuff, I'd probably be the best player on the worst team.
I have unmuted myself. This always sounds like a humble brag or something, but I'm pretty selfless most of the time. And if being on the best team basically equates to a championship, winning is the balm that fixes all burns. So a lot of times when people talk about team chemistry, you almost always hear it in the context of a team that's done at least decently well. Maybe they're not the championship winning team, but you don't hear a lot of teams in like the NBA who lose 65 games and go, well, we were miserable all season, but I sure loved hanging with the boys. So I guess just knowing that it would increase camaraderie, that I'd still be a part of something bigger, like I at least have to be helping out in practice or something, I think I would have no problem with the worst player on the best team because the best player on the worst team might not even be that good. You know, think about like the Coyotes right now who are trash. I don't think they've won a game in the NHL yet. Who's the best player on the Coyotes? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But like, how good are they? Not very. Who's the best team or who's the worst team in the NBA right now? Probably the Thunder. So am I Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's okay? A good young player who might get better? That's not phenomenal. It's not like I'm LeBron, because if I'm LeBron, I'm not on the worst team in the league, right? So I think it's pretty easy for me.
I feel like I said, with professional sports, especially if you are, I guess you're getting paid if you're the worst player on the best team. But again, your job security is not going to be very long. If you're the best player on the worst team, you're probably going to hang around the league for a while in that instance. You know, if you're the best player on the worst team of football, yeah, you're probably still going to have a job somewhere else. But if you're the worst player on the best team, it's very likely that you're not going to be in the league in a couple of years. So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, and I mean, you could look at those in two different ways, right? Because you could be like, well, if you're the best player on the worst team, you can always change teams later. You know, a la LeBron getting out of Cleveland and finding a better situation before he eventually came back. But then again, if you're the worst player on the best team, then you know, well, there's a league minimum, so I'm making at least okay money. I'm not going to make the $100 million contract in whatever sport, but I make enough money that I can at least put something away. So, yeah, I think it's still pretty easily worst player on the best team for me.
Yep.
And that's the end of the episode. Any last thoughts before I shut it down?
I'm wondering if there's anything else on the slides, because we stayed on the intro and never moved because there's nothing here this week.
You want to see? There it is. It's last week's one. I didn't even bother doing it. That's why there's nothing else on it. There it is. Wrong episode number and everything. So I don't have the end slide that says when the next episode is, but it's 5:05. It's next Tuesday on the 9th. And the one programming reminder that we said we would do is for all of our non-Arizona listeners and viewers out there, Daylight Savings Time is kicking in again this Sunday. So just keep in mind that we're all going to shift an hour relative to when you are. For us, it stays the same because our state is smarter than most.
Mm-hmm.
So next week it's going to be, let's see, so it's been 10:30 Eastern. Next week it's going to be 9:30 Eastern, which is good for all the people who want to join us from elsewhere who may have thought it was a little bit late. That'll help you at least. For us, it just means that we have 7:30 still and it's not changing. But the easiest way to keep in track of it will be just keeping an eye on your YouTube page. If you subscribe to us, I put up the post in advance, although it was late tonight because of shit happening. And usually it'll give you a couple hours of like, here's a countdown. The show starts in this time, no matter where you are.
Smash that bell, so you get notified.
Yeah.
That's a thing that people do apparently. But yeah, subscribe and you'll see it easily because I've subscribed to it and I can see it when I just open up my YouTube. It's just boom right there. First one.
Yep. It'll tell you exactly how long it is until the show, and then you can join us live as people have been. As always, the audience is appreciated because, hey, we're free rolling at this point. We're doing the exact same thing we would normally have done on a Tuesday night. We record it all in one go. There's no post editing anyways, so why not do it live?
And now we've got the Fialas joining us, so it's wonderful.
Yep.
Keep joining us, people. This is actually fun when we have some input on there because it makes us think about other things.
Yeah, and it was a lot more than Sean contributed this week.
Yep. I mean, not differently, not that much different than normal, but,
Wow. Harsh, but he's not here to defend himself, so it's going to have to stand on the record.
It's fair.
Alrighty, that is the end of this episode. In between shows, you can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com, or on the place you probably already are right now, youtube.com/objectionnetwork. The podcast is live every week. If you're not already joining us, you should be. Mm-hmm. We'll see you next time.